In the old archives of the London police, there is a black and white photograph. A woman lies on the damp stone floor, her face covered by a torn piece of cloth. No caption, no address, only a few crossed-out numbers in the corner of the paper. Such files are not rare. Unsigned statements, erased traces, evidence lost in the gap. And the question remains: when there is no confession, when there is no evidence left, where does the truth lie? The cases in this episode share one point: they never closed. Some were never arrested. Some confessed to too much, leaving no one certain of what was true. Some served only a few years, then were released, disappearing into the dark. And in other cases, justice stopped halfway, leaving fragments that could never be completed. If one detail keeps your eyes from turning away, leave it in the comments. Sometimes, it is your unease that becomes the missing piece of this picture. And if you want to go deeper into the files that were never closed, subscribe to the channel, so that each time a door opens, you will be the first to step in with us. London, 1888. Cast broken shadows on the wet pavement. In the rundown lodging house, people slept crowded together. Wooden doors unshut. The women who worked the night still stepped out from there, carrying a wrapper, then vanished into the dark. No one knew that the door they had just walked through would never close in the ordinary way. The first to be found was Mary Ann Nichols. On the morning of August 31st, her body lay on Buck's Row. Her throat had been cut, the wound so deep it was nearly severed. Her skirt was pulled up, but her pockets were empty. Beside her, the iron gate remained open. A crack, the wind passing through, as if it had seen everything. Less than a week later, Annie Chapman appeared in a similar state. On the morning of September 8th, in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. The wounds were clean, deep, and with signs of internal organs removed. A neighbor testified to hearing noise around 5 a.m. The sound of a door slamming shut. But when it was opened, there was nothing left but empty space. On September 30th, two other victims, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, were discovered less than an hour apart. One on Berner Street, the other in Mitre Square. Stride was thought to have been interrupted. Eddowes bore cuts that were more precise, more deliberate. Police noted the clean incisions, as if by someone with anatomical knowledge. In the file, one officer wrote, "The gateway leading into the square was still open. No one remembers when it was last locked." The final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was found in her small room on Dorset Street, November 9th. The scene inside was described in short, dry words. All internal organs removed. The wooden door of the lodging house showed no sign of forced entry. The key remained with the landlord. No one understood how he entered or how he left. A door left open, but one no one could ever close again. The investigation unfolded on a massive scale. Police compiled lists of hundreds of suspects. doctors, butchers, sailors, even members of the royal family. They received letters signed Jack the Ripper. Clumsy handwriting, red ink imitating blood. One of them read, "Catch me if you can." But fingerprints were never found, witnesses remained vague, and no one was arrested. The press amplified the fear. The name Jack the Ripper was born from it. A shadow cast over the city. Every lodging house in Whitechapel shut its doors tightly after dusk. But no one believed thin wooden planks could stop someone like him. Investigation reports followed one after another, but all stopped halfway. All. Each page resembled a door, left ajar, abandoned in the middle. Many theories emerged. The killer could have been a surgeon, a butcher, a foreigner, or even someone from the upper class, shielded by power. But none of the theories held evidence. All remained at the level of suspicion. More than a century has passed, and the identity of Jack the Ripper has never been revealed. Whitechapel streets today are different. Pubs lit bright, tourists taking photographs. Yet plaques still hang on walls, marking the spots where victims were once found, as if the city had chosen to preserve traces that were never closed. A door opened in 1888, and to this day it has never been shut, which is more unsettling. A killer who was never caught, or a truth that was never written into the record. London 1888 ends with a nameless phantom, but the door in Whitechapel has never truly closed. Decades later, on the other side of the world, the markets of the Andes witnessed other doors, warped wooden gates where children stepped out, then disappeared, never returning. And this time, it was not a shadow in the fog, but a man of flesh and blood. He confessed to hundreds of crimes, then was released, leaving behind a void greater than fear itself. In the mountain markets of the Andes, Colombia, in the late 1960s, children often gathered near the crooked wooden gates of the stalls, playing while their mothers sold goods. It was also the place they vanished. A child stepped through the market gate, then never returned. At first, people thought they had strayed. Then, that it was abduction for trade. But as the number rose to dozens, then hundreds, that door opened into a void no one wished to face. Pedro López, born in 1948, grew up amid violence and neglect. His mother worked in prostitution. His father died before his birth. At the age of 8, Pedro was expelled from his home, wandering the streets of Bogotá, where he himself was assaulted by older men. That fragmented childhood gradually turned into a distorted fixation. He chose as his targets the very children who were small and easily overlooked. For more than a decade, López moved between Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Wherever there were poor markets, there were traces he left behind. He often approached young girls with promises of candy or clothes, leading them outside town to open fields where the final door closed behind them. A ritual repeated, almost mechanical. In 1980, a major flood in Ecuador accidentally exposed shallow graves, many containing the bodies of children. From there, López was traced. Arrested in Ambato after attempting to abduct a girl, he confessed immediately, no hesitation, no evasion. In the interrogation room, López described in detail how he had killed more than 300 children. The number was so large that even the police did not believe him. But then, bodies were found, clues matched. One officer later wrote in the file, he spoke of each case as if reading from a list. His voice flat, unchanged. The Ecuadorian court sentenced López in 1980. But the law at that time did not allow imprisonment for more than 16 years, even with victims too numerous to count. After 14 years, López was released on grounds of sufficient rehabilitation. The prison door closed behind him, but it was also the door that opened to greater fear. From that point, Pedro López disappeared. Some reports say he was deported to Colombia, arrested briefly for a minor crime, then released again. After the mid-1990s, no one knew where he was. Colombian police once issued a warrant, but with no result. Some believe he is dead, killed in prison. Others believe he is still alive, hidden among the markets of South America, where a crooked wooden gate could open at any moment. He was called the Monster of the Andes. But the official record states only, sentence served, released. No life imprisonment, no final penalty. In law, the case was closed. But in society, in the memory of hundreds of families who lost children, that door has never closed. Which is more unsettling, a killer imprisoned for life, or one who confessed to hundreds of murders, then was released, vanishing into the dark. Pedro López disappeared after the prison door shut, leaving behind a question no one has answered. Was he dead or still walking among the poor markets? But others chose a different way to exist, not by vanishing, but by speaking too much. A single confession can open a door, but 48 confessions in succession lead only to a maze without exit. Robert Charles Browne lived what seemed an ordinary life in Colorado. Neighbors remembered a quiet man, unremarkable, sometimes bent over a car in his yard. No one paid attention to the doors he once passed through. The doors opening and closing behind motels scattered across the United States, until one of them no longer stayed silent. In 1991, the body of Heather Dawn Church, a 13-year-old girl, was found in a remote area near Colorado Springs. The evidence was vague, but a fingerprint on the window frame leading outside eventually matched Browne. In 1995, he was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. At that time, police thought they had closed a door, but it was inside prison that Browne began opening others. In his cell, he wrote letters to the police, confessing not to one, but to dozens of other crimes stretching back to the 1970s. He spoke of women who vanished along highways, of cheap motels, of empty spaces no one remembered. The final number he gave, 48. Police began to verify. Some of his accounts matched unsolved cases. Others had no trace at all. Browne described in detail how he entered and left locked houses, but never explained why the locks showed no sign of being forced. An investigator wrote in the file, "He spoke as if he had been there, yet left enough gaps that no listener could ever be certain." Many cases closed unfinished. Families of victims heard the confessions, but there was no evidence to bring to trial. One mother said to the press, "He described my daughter, but no one can prove it. Should I believe him or not?" Such questions remained suspended, like a door opened, then abandoned, with no one stepping through. Inside prison, Browne lived quietly as an ordinary inmate. He did not attempt escape, did not contest his sentence, but each time he spoke, it was another confession. Police were forced to record, only to meet another dead end. Doubt began to grow. Did he confess to boast, to manipulate, or to conceal his true crimes? To this day, Robert Charles Browne has been definitively convicted of only one murder. The other 47 remain in the void, between testimony and evidence, between record and memory. The door he opened in the interrogation room has never been closed, and perhaps never will be. Which is more unsettling? A man who stays silent and vanishes, like Pedro López, or one who opens too many doors, until all of them lead to nothing. Robert Charles Browne left behind dozens of confessions, like doors opening in succession, but leading nowhere. People stand at the threshold, not knowing whether to step in or turn away. Elsewhere, a young man did not need to say much. Only one conviction. But in his broken testimony, he hinted at other doors. Darker, deeper, the summer of 1969, in the outskirts of Wanete, Victoria, Australia. Two children played by the beach, then disappeared beyond the door of monsoon wind and breaking waves. A day later, police found the body of 12-year-old Yvonne Tuohy killed. Her companion, Shane, escaped narrowly and described the attacker, a young man in military uniform, driving a blue Holden car. That clue led to Derek Ernest Percy. Percy was then 21, a serviceman in the Royal Australian Navy. He was arrested immediately after the incident, his car matching the witness account, blood on the seat. In interrogation, Percy neither denied nor confessed. He only sat in silence, admitting he was in the area, but said he could not remember what had happened. Psychiatrists concluded Percy suffered from severe mental disorder, with violent sexual obsessions. In 1970, the court ruled he was not legally responsible in the conventional sense, sentencing him instead to indefinite detention in a high-security psychiatric facility. The door seemed to close with one case, but from that moment, other doors began to open. In the following decade, police investigated a series of child disappearances across Australia, from Sydney, Melbourne, to Darwin. All carried a common trace. Percy had once lived nearby, been stationed there, or passed through at the very time the crimes occurred. The case of Linda Stillwell, age 7, who vanished in St. Kilda in 1968. The Beaumont children, 3 siblings who disappeared from Adelaide's beach in 1966. The case of Simon Brooke, age 3, killed in Sydney. In police files, Percy's name appeared in all of them. He never admitted anything, but in interrogation rooms, Percy left fragments of sentences like doors left open a crack. I might have been there. I'm not sure what I did. Maybe I'm the only one alive who knows the truth. Words not enough to convict, but more than enough to leave an imprint. In prison, Percy filled pages with writings of violent fantasies. When police searched, they found handwritten accounts describing child torture in disturbing detail. But again, it was only paper, not evidence. The legal door remained closed, no one able to cross to the other side. The only victim Percy was ever convicted in connection with was Yvonne Touhy. All remaining files, more than a dozen disappearances and murders, ended in suspicion. Families of the victims died waiting, holding unfinished case files in their hands. One mother once said, "He knows. He definitely knows. But he will take the truth with him to the grave." In July 2013, Derek Percy died in a prison hospital at age 64 of cancer. Death closed a life, but not the questions. There was no final confession, no map leading to undiscovered graves. The doors of memory he kept locked disappeared with his last breath. Today, in the official list of Australian police, Derek Percy is still marked as prime suspect in at least 8 unsolved child cases. None ever closed after the final line. And in public memory, he remains the image of a man sitting silent, with empty eyes, leaving others to fill the void with their own fear. What drives a man to choose silence to the very end? And in that silence, how many doors were left never to be opened again? Derek Percy died in silence, carrying keys he never passed on. The doors leading to truth remain intact, locked inside his memory. But sometimes, evil requires no knife and no blood. With words alone, another man led an entire family to lock themselves inside their home, to destroy one another from within. In 1999, a man named Thierry Tilly appeared in the village of Montflancoin in southern France. Outwardly, he was polite, calm, with the manner of an intellectual. He introduced himself as an expert in law, in security, and in hidden threats surrounding an old aristocratic family, the Védrines. The door of their ancestral estate opened to welcome Tilly. And from that moment, it never closed again in the ordinary sense. Over the course of 10 years, each member of the family, 11 in total, was convinced by him that they were the target of a secret global conspiracy. Tilly told them that only he could protect them, but in return, they had to obey without question. One by one, the doors of the estate closed. Children were pulled from school. Adults abandoned their jobs. All withdrew into the stone house, isolating themselves from the outside world. He used no knife, no physical violence. With words alone, Tilly made this family surrender all their assets: the castle, the land, the bank accounts. When the money was gone, he forced them into manual labor for companies he controlled. Anyone who expressed doubt was immediately declared a traitor, then ostracized by their own relatives. Each room of the old house became a cell where people locked their own doors, avoiding one another, watching one another as if the enemy was inside the family itself. For 10 years, the Védrines lived this way, completely cut off from friends and neighbors. Few could believe that an educated, wealthy family had turned themselves into prisoners. But the files show it was a gradual process, one door closing, another opening, all leading into the darkness Tilly constructed. In 2009, one of the women escaped. She went to the police, bringing with her a fragmented account. Brainwashing, isolation, complete dispossession. The investigation began, exposing an almost unbelievable truth. Police noted in their report, no blood, no weapons, only a chain of distorted beliefs, turned into shackles. Tilly was arrested in Switzerland and extradited to France. In 2013, the Bordeaux court sentenced him to 8 years in prison for fraud, abuse of weakness, and misappropriation of assets. But that sentence accounted only for the visible part. The hidden part was the decade stolen from an entire family. Trust broken beyond repair. Relationships never to be restored. One member testified in court. He killed no one, but we died for those 10 years. Thierry Tilly sat in prison, the case legally closed. But in the memory of the Vedrines family, that door has never truly shut. The ancestral home, after the scandal, still stands. Its rooms once used for self-confinement. Its old locks marked with trembling hands. Sometimes, evil requires no blade, only a well-placed word, a vague promise, and a door someone else chooses to walk through. What makes an intelligent, educated, wealthy family destroy themselves willingly? And how many other doors out there remain half open, waiting for someone like Tilly to walk through? From the foggy streets of London to the poor markets of the Andes, then across America, Australia, and France. All of these cases stopped halfway. Some perpetrators were never caught. Some confessed to too much, leaving no one sure what was true. Some died in silence, carrying the keys. Some sat in prison, but the fractures they left could never be sealed by any sentence. Each file was closed, yet always left one door ajar. Behind it lay the void of unanswered questions, the silence of truth never written. What is more unsettling, a crime unpunished, or a truth never recorded? Perhaps it is this very emptiness that lingers. If any detail from these stories stays with you, leave it in the comments. And if you wish to continue opening doors that were never closed, subscribe to the channel, so that when the next episode begins, you will be the first to step inside with us.